Mm. Welcome everyone to Dog's Voice. The topic today is why R+, why positive training, why force-free. Our dogs are talking to us all the time. Are you listening? Well, today we're going to broach a topic that's very, very important with the trainer wars that are going on, aversive or positive, and all of the issues that come up with does this work, does that work? And we'll be touching on it today, maybe for about half an hour. In 2019, I did a talk in North Carolina, and it was a day long, and it was very intense, and it was called Why Force Free. And the point is that what's pertinent then in 2019 is pertinent today. And today's video is just touching on why we should use R+ or why not use it. I mean, it works, it's wonderful, it's results oriented. So thank you for being here, and this video will be recorded as well. So why R+? And when we talk R+, we're talking positive training, meaning why force free? Why train without force? Why train without pain? Because the times have changed, and we need to get rid of those tools that hurt dogs versus those tools that create a good partnership, a good relationship with a dog. The most effective and powerful leaders are able to change the behavior of others without the use of physical force or intimidation. But you have to know what you're doing. You can't just say, I'm going to train positively, unless you know everything that that means and how to do it, what techniques, what tools to use. But the big thing is to say no to force-based trainers. So what is R+? It works by, it's simple. It's you reinforce the behaviors that you want so that you create a teaching atmosphere of showing the dog what to do instead of the behaviors that they're doing now. And those behaviors are those that you would like to see more of. And so you would reward that with food or toys or praise, petting, play. But the dog chooses what his rewards are, because if it's not reinforcing to the dog, then it's not reinforcing. And you should be thinking, what works for my dog in the rewards that you choose, not those that are chosen by you or that you just happen to have on hand and you think your dog should like it. Basically, your dog is getting paid for doing a job well done. And that's how you should look at it. I'm paying my dog for giving me behaviors that I'd like to see instead of the behaviors that he's giving me. So positive does not mean permissive. And I think that's a huge fallacy, is that aversive trainers, balanced trainers see positive as giving permission to the dogs or slacking off in their training. But you can get precision, perfect training with positive all the way, and it does not mean permissive. I, for one, love manners in my dogs, and I train for that. So R Plus often uses a mark reward system of teaching. A marker can be a clicker, a word, a hand signal. So what we do is we mark the behavior we want first. So if I want to sit, the dog's standing, I would click as they are starting to sit in the process of. And when that butt hits the floor, then I would reward. Because I want to reinforce the behavior that I want, and that makes it stronger. It's very clear to the dog what they just did and how they earned that reward. And so that makes the behavior become stronger later. So toys provide many choices, such as tennis balls. You can use tennis balls or games, tug, treat, ball roll or a ball toss or a flirt pull. Those are all rewards. What does the dog like? What does the dog find reinforcing? That's what you want to use. Food provides many choices. Some dogs might like sausages, others cheese, or even some dogs like carrots. I've had dogs like whipped cream or watermelon and even broccoli. The dog is working. So the dog gets paid to work, and you are reinforcing the behaviors you want instead. The behavior change occurs, and it is long lasting when the dogs are taught positively. And you have a willing and happy partner when you're teaching it. The key is that you have to understand what you are doing, why you are doing it, and how. Because there are a lot of different types of training. Agility training, behavior, which is different than skills, trick training, and think of all of the performance sports out there that you could train. I don't train agility because I don't understand it. I would like to take an agility course, but I do understand behavior, whereas an agility instructor might not. There are just a lot of different venues, and all of them can be trained positive. Even bite sports and search and rescue, service dog training. It goes on and on. So one of the tools that we use is a treat pouch. You want to have food, but you also have to realize that some dogs are so shut down that they can't take food. They're so stressed that their digestive system is shut down and they cannot take food. Doesn't mean they're not food motivated. Or you might have the dog that's food motivated, but finds the disbursement aversive, hand reaching out, or your body position, frontal approaches. And so the treat becomes aversive. So you have to find something else to use or work through that. So why do we use R Plus training? Well, because no pain is used. And aversive trainers use pain to train. And I would just like to see that go away. And I'm sure most of us would. And there's a wide berth of talk about R Plus versus balance trainers who will use aversion if what they're doing with R Plus doesn't work. But I'm confused because if you're using positive training correctly, why wouldn't it work? And you shouldn't be just saying that gives you permission to use aversive techniques. You should go back to the drawing board and see what you missed. The dog is happy and a willing participant. That's the kind of dog I want. That's the kind of dog I want to see working with my clients. I don't want to see a dog that's shut down that I have to shock into compliance. You get a different dog. It is a bridge of communication the dog understands. The dog doesn't understand our language, although they try very, very hard. They do build a vocabulary. We try less to understand them. And we need to do more of that, understanding their body language, why they do the things they do, who they are as an individual. It builds trust. It builds relationships versus teaching with pain, which creates fear and stress. How can you not create fear and stress when you are using pain to train? Doing something wrong equals the fear of pain. And so the concept is that the behavior will stop in that moment. But the dog learned that they were hurt, and so they're avoiding that pain, but they don't really learn what else to do instead. They learn to stop what they're doing, and it looks like they're trained. They become very robotic looking. Just don't hurt me. And they really don't learn to do what else instead, which is what I would be teaching, is what to do instead. And you can probably think of 101 other reasons why we train R+ if you're good at it. What's the argument from the other side? That it's bribery. Well, no, because bribery means you just give the dog a treat. What we're doing is we're marking the behavior that we want first. So the behavior comes first that we want, and then the reward or the reinforcement is dispersed. Force feed trainers allow dogs to get away with behavior. The cookie pushers label, that just, I hate that word, cookie pushers, hot dog tossers, whatever you want to call it. The aversive trainers think that our dogs have no manners. What they're seeing is a happy dog that does have manners, who doesn't have to cower in the corner or be robotic doing motions that they think are appropriate. So our cookie pushers, no, but we do push reinforcement, and we do write the paycheck at the end of the day. Doesn't work on the tough, high-level challenges. Absolutely not true. That's all I work with. And basically saying that it's ineffective for aggression and reactivity. That's ridiculous. I always think of wild animals too. If you've got a really high-level case, think about working with a wild animal in a zoo, or how you're going to get the trust of that animal. There are many, many ways to do that, and you never have to confront the animal. So what we do is non-confrontational training versus confrontational training. Sometimes you have to use force. Well, if you do, then you better go back to the drawing board and see what you missed. What step didn't you apply? Did you go too far, too fast, which means you would be going backwards? Did you go too slow? That means that you're not progressing. You're not proofing the dog. You're not testing to see how far they've come. And they say that we say everything is science-based. Well, science is important, and studying is important. Learning about the behavior and why it works and why it is science-based. It's kind of a way to get around something if you don't understand it. But science helps us understand the reasons that we would do a training process. And then it takes too long. Well, it doesn't. It takes time for any type of training. And the dog learns to trust, they learn confidence, and it's longer lasting. And they learn what to do instead of the behavior that they have been going repeatedly down the path doing time and time again. So shut down to confident. This poor dog, you can just feel for him. He's worried, he's sad, probably doesn't understand anything that's going on with him. And then the same dog on the right is now confident. The challenging cases, again, think wild animals, zoo animals. How would you train them? First steps might be, and these are not in order, They might be to target an object, a quick stick, for instance, or a stick or your hand. And a verbal marker for everything the animal is doing right. You have a paradigm shift when you're training positively. You don't look for what the dog's doing wrong and then hurt them. You look for what they're doing right and then provide a reinforcer that makes the right stronger. All we're going for is stronger behavior in what we're teaching, not a shutdown situation. Knowing when to go forward and when to stop is very important. You might do a treat retreat sequence where you simply are building trust so the dog can gain confidence and feel good in their environment, because everything evolves around the environment that the dog is in at any given moment. So your goal is building trust, confidence, ability to be operant in a scary world, and what is wrong with that? Not using any pain to do that. R+ sees the individual versus having to make the dog do what you think they should. Non-confrontational versus confrontational. You can't do aversive training without being confrontational. You walk in, you grab the dog, you put a leash or a collar on them right away, and then you start your training that you think should be happening and what the dog should be doing that you say they should be doing, versus non-confrontational training where we don't touch the dog. We have the dog come out of their shell in their time to gain trust. And that is very powerful. So real life stories, because that's what I do daily, is train dogs that have issues and all around the world. So I don't even have to be with the dog to train the dogs. I'm actually training the people to teach the dogs, and positively all the way. So these dogs were fighting, the two females on the ends there, and they were using my multi-dog household fighting tool called Acclimate, Tolerate, and Accept, which is the Add a Dog training. And even the cat wanted to get involved later on. We had a lot of work in between to get to this point, but there was never any harm used. And you can see the eagerness on the faces. They're not going to tear into each other. They have no reason to be mean because they were trained with kindness. And this is Cherry. She's very stressed here. Her ears are back, whale eye, mouth closed. You really need to pay attention to this because stress accelerates behavior quickly. So pay attention to the dog's body language because it is their voice. They don't speak our language. It's like taking a course from another, like speaking French or Spanish or whatever. You have to learn this dog's body language in order to understand. And when you see a whale eye like you're seeing here, you know that is kind of a warning signal to you. You want to hang back. You don't want to go forward. Cherry is now a wonderful dog. She had problems with the two twins born into the family after she was there, and she would chase and nip at the babies, and she's not doing that anymore. Listen to the dogs. They are talking to you. So what techniques and tools we use in R+ training? I'm speaking to the choir, to some of you. We use clickers. We use verbal markers. We use hand signal markers. We use fake dogs first in a dog training. And we treat those fake dogs just as if they were real dogs. And we use enrichment because you can teach a dog what else to do with various enrichment. We use safe zones, which means we use X pens or crates or barriers to make sure that the dog doesn't repeat the behavior that we don't want, while we build the behaviors that we do want. And it has to be a progressive process. And in the picture here, you see my little Sky, who came to me at 2 years old, and he was one paw in euthanasia. Everybody knows him. And he had bitten 5 times, and he was ready to be put down, and he was in quarantine. He'd sent his owner to the ER. Well, it's a case of extreme resource guarding. And here he is in my yard, and that's the body of a happy dog. That's what you want to see. And I don't want the dog to just sit at my left side and look at me with they can't move a single muscle, because I am going to hurt them if they do. I want the dog to be able to make decisions. They're not stupid. So here's a case of Doberman, dog reactive and human reactive, over in the far side of the fake dog, and another dog and jogger going by. That's real life that was happening, but he was able to handle it because we had worked a lot with fake dogs, and we had worked a lot with people before that time. So you want to just measure the 3 Ds, which is distance, that is doable for the dog, the duration of the exercise, which is usually short, and then what distractions are in the environment. So we added a second distraction here. And this Doberman lived out his life with his owners until the day he died, which he died of cancer. And then this little girl was human reactive and dog reactive. And boy, did she love to do enrichment though. So we used enrichment as her reward, as well as food and other things that she could participate in. It completely made the environment much more welcoming. And then anything that we would bring into the environment was much more welcoming. And we were building the levels of serotonin and oxytocin and dopamine levels that she needed to be able to get over any reactivity that she was experiencing as a little dog. We use barriers. Introductions to dogs don't always have to be face-to-face or at all for a while, but maybe through a barrier. And then you get a happier dog that knows that they're safe and that they can meet people on their own time and at their own pace. And that is really what you want them to do, is to feel confident, to feel safe. And if I were to use a version here, I would be hurting the dog to do what I want them to do. Maybe I want them to come away from that gate, or whatever other thing I have in my mind. But that's not teaching them to make good decisions. It's teaching them to avoid pain. And then this is my little Sky later on as well. And he's a different dog today. He is pretty happy-go-lucky little guy, unless he has only one thing left, that if a person approaches him as if they were going to hit him or grab him or something, then we might get a response from him, because he goes back to that fear that he had of all of that, because fear stays in the amygdala. It's just that they don't have to keep going down that path. They know what else to do instead. Like maybe walk away or grab the ball, or many number of things that he can do instead of aggressing. They would only go back down that pathway if a situation occurred that they didn't know how to handle. So there's no need for pain to train. No matter what you're teaching, whether it's to walk loose leash, you can walk with one finger and you can use 2 points of contact and then go to 1 point of contact. You can do short line to long line. You can do off lead training, desensitization, counter conditioning, engage, disengage would be an example. And then again, the 3 Ds, distance, duration, and distraction should always be at the forefront, as well as graphing frequency, intensity, and duration of the behavior itself, so that you have an example of how you are progressing. So in dog reactivity, this dog was able to, I could walk him with one finger, and he would listen to everything I was saying. So it doesn't matter, big dog, small dog, medium dog, giant dog. Training is really all the same. Hyperactive, the dog learns to do a touch or a default behavior, and here a sit, but focused on the owner instead of the trigger that would make him hyperactive. And then dog aggression, working at a distance with the German Shepherd. And I will tell you that teacher dogs are absolutely invaluable in working with dog aggression. This is a dog who knows what they're doing. They know how to do it. They are good at doing it, and they make it easy to communicate with the dog that is being trained. Now, these are some of my clients here. I heard something. If you could make sure that you have muted your audio, please. So to me, R+ simply works, and I don't have to be at the dog to get results. That's the worst thing that I could do is be angry. And I don't know, but I think you have to have some anger to say, okay, that I don't like that. And so I'm going to jerk the prong collar or the choke collar, or I'm going to hang you, or I'm going to shock you. I'd rather have, that's not the kind of relationship that I would want to have with my dogs. And I do want to say that I am not naive. I started out being an aversive trainer. I know exactly what they do, how they do it, and I've seen the dogs that come out of it. And to me, you get a much different dog when you're training positively, and you work with the dog as a team. Dog becomes a team member, not that I'm the boss or the dog's trying to dominate me. But we're a team working together to accomplish a goal. And you can do this from performance dogs, you can to fear-free, to dog issues. It doesn't matter what issue you're working with or who the dog is. But I will say that there are maybe 1% of the cases that might have a mental condition that you may not be able to work with no matter what you do. I don't like layering fear on fear. Usually if a dog is reactive, fearful, they're telling you they're not comfortable with something in the environment or in their life. And why I would want to layer more fear on that and hurt them is just beyond me. I'll never understand it. And I've seen it, I've been there, I've done that. And I'm very happy to see that we have a choice. So whether you're working with kids, the golden retriever here is hyperactive. He will bowl over kids. And so I took this little girl and showed her how to work with this dog. And he's much better. And when you have the correct body language, you know what you're doing. Even a child can do it. So please, senior, a child, anyone can implement this. It doesn't have to be that I have to give you a tool to hurt your dog in order for them to be greatly trained. Intense fear of humans. This is Lobo in Germany. He's in my book. He is quite a case. He's a street dog, and he was very fearful of humans, and he tried to bite his owner at first. He went from fearful to happy. He couldn't even go outside. So here he's outside. He was stuck in a room. He was cowering in a corner. He wouldn't come off his mat. And this is quite a story, a very lengthy story that I won't go in here, but he was trained all positively. He wasn't applied a collar and jerked out of the room to make him go somewhere that he didn't want to go. You can use positive training at performance precision, stage work, anything to help the dog feel more comfortable. If the dog's not feeling comfortable, you'll know it. Their body language will tell you, I'm not comfortable doing this. And then you would stop doing what you're doing at that very moment, and you would regroup. You might be able to continue, or you might not. And this is Haas. He's a biter. He bit. He was a resource guarder, but he went from guarding resources to sharing. It doesn't matter how big the dog is. If you know what you're doing when you're training positively, then that is what is important. How to do it, how to train your clients, coach your clients on how to work with their dogs properly, and really listen to them just like you would listen to the dog. You have to have certain people skills as well if you're working remotely with dogs or even face-to-face. So behavior change was achieved. The evidence says that training with negative reinforcement is bad for relationships. Research has found that dogs trained using aversive training methods were 15 times more likely to show symptoms of stress, which is what I work in and where my research is, than those who were trained using positive reinforcement. When stress builds, behavior escalates. So you have to know how to listen to the dog's voice. They're always talking to you, from that slight eyebrow lift to mouth closed, wrinkle in the forehead, you name it, you watch it. Suddenly the tail tucks, maybe just for 2 seconds, but it tucked, and that meant something was wrong within the environment that they were worried about. Don't expect the dog to know what to do. It's you that is teaching the dog and keeping them safe and showing them what else to do instead. That's important. So basically, in the end, it's up to the trainer to use R+ correctly and effectively. And I like effectively more because I'm always thinking results oriented, or I'm not training that dog. Results are very important. Don't go into a training situation where you don't think you're going to have results. Really sit down. It's a step-by-step process. You look at the individual. Who is that individual? How do they learn? How do they think? And then you move through the behavior modification process. Be good at what you do and never apologize for it. And be good at how you do it. Learn from the best and from those that get results through R+, and get the training that you need. I have 7 pages of credentials and certifications, all R+, so you can see why I do it. I don't need to default back into some hurtful training because I've spent time learning what to do, what else to do. It's a two-way street, not a one-way road. Don't compromise your beliefs. If you believe and you're learning and you're using R+, don't be afraid to partner up with a trainer better than you. It's okay, but don't apply pressure to a dog if it's, I mean, it's just not necessary. And I don't care what anybody else says, it just isn't, because those are the dogs that I work with, are the hard dogs. I have 3 biters right now that I'm working with, different levels, different reasons, different triggers and stimuli, and different ways of working through their R+ workload. So this is always very important. So are there any questions that you might have just by this small little presentation that I've given today? Go ahead. If you want to unmute yourself, you can do that. Go ahead and do that if you would like to, and you can ask me a question. That is just fine. I'm going to, or type it into the chat. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions. This is just a real basic reason why should I use R+, or why am I using R+? Why should I continue to use R+? You could discuss this for 2 days at length, going into shelters and performance dogs and fear-free vet visits, and on and on. What we do is we put dogs into situations that they just can't handle. And then we blame the dog. Well, you should be able to handle this. And if you don't, then I'm going to tug on the lead. That's the hardest thing for people to get rid of, is jerking on that lead. For some reason, we feel we have to do that when we don't. So again, anybody have any questions at this point? Any comments? Okay, then I am available to answer your questions and address your comments if you would like to later. And I thank you for joining me for this very important discussion that we have to have, and we will continue to have dialogue on this for a very long time. And we need to really focus on what we're doing and how we're doing it and who we're hurting or not hurting. So this has been Dog's Voice, and I'm Diane Garrett, and thank you so much for joining me today. I will have a recording of this that you can watch later. Bye-bye, everybody.